right, so this is perfect because this kind of went with what we were starting off today with, talking about switching it up.
Yep.
I had a day off from chartering. Fishing had been good, like it'd been no problem, but I had a morning off. Somebody canceled last minute, so I called Dan and said, "Hey, you want to get out there and just go mess around?"
Yeah.
Good.
So like the thing with this particular day and this particular time of year, and actually the whole season really, like
This season was a weird one.
absolutely plenty of mackerel around, but like the searching of the mackerel on certain days was just like, where the hell are these things?
It was just so frustrating.
Yeah, it became a little frustrating. And, as the time creeps on a little bit, when you're trying to find bait and it's creeping into your fishing time, it's like, oh man. So I'll never forget what we did was, and something that probably a lot of fishermen do, but I hadn't really done in the past, was when you finally find the mackerel, when you're catching them, why not send one out on a balloon and see what happens, right? So I guess the rest is history.
Yeah, so it's kind of an old technique that we used to do. I grew up doing in the last, I don't know, decade since I started chartering. We really didn't do it, like here and there if we saw some signs, but it was just we were in that pattern where we'd be getting mackerel. It seemed like every day we'd pull up to a spot, get two full strings right off the bat, and then it would be a struggle for 10, 15 minutes. And sometimes you get another wave in, sometimes you wouldn't. And then I'd start maybe marking a striper on my screen, or I'd see some swirls, or so it's like, all right, there's some fish hanging around here in the mackerel schools. And so that was kind of the day. I think it might have been early July, late June, somewhere in that frame.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
Yeah, it was relatively early in the season. So me and Dan were out, we were catching mackerel, and we threw one on a balloon, caught a nice fish, and we're like, all right, let's hang around here. And we started trolling around just this random area, and I don't know, we got 7 or 8 fish over 40 inches, and we were in by 9 o'clock in the morning.
Yep.
Yeah, like at the dock back at 9.
Yeah, like never in a million years did I ever think I would fish there. It was just kind of like, oh, we'll give it a shot, see what happens. It was like, oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I fished that way for about 2 more weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, for about 2 more weeks I fished that way. And then it kind of solved my mackerel problem too, because we ended up trolling. So when you're trolling, it's not like when you drift in the mouth when a lot of mackerel die, they fall off. There's a lot of schoolies picking them off. You catch a lot of schoolies and a lot of fish as well. But like when you're trolling in that type of fashion, it's not crazy action. So I just needed enough mackerel to get me started. So now we were going out there getting our typical 3 strings right off the bat, our 15 mackerel.
Yep.
And instead of sitting there for a half an hour or moving all over the place, we were just setting out a 4-rod spread for stripers. And then I would actually troll a sabiki, and we would pick up mackerel as we were striper fishing. And it was crazy when the mackerel would hit the sabiki, almost like half the time a striper rod would go off. So, we'd move around, the mackerel would hit, we let them dangle, fill up the sabiki, just, 15 feet, 20 feet behind the boat. And then before you know it, a striper rod or 2 would go off. So I think even those mackerel messed up kind of triggered the stripers that were pushing them around to come to our baits.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll talk about ways later to our members about how we were trolling these. We'll get into more detail about that.
Yeah, because when you troll, you definitely want to make it as effective as possible. I mean, you're burning gasoline to make it happen, right?
Well, I'm burning electricity with my trolling motor.
This is true.
But like that was just an example of trying to do something different, see what the situations is giving you. Sometimes there is no rhyme or reason to do what you're doing. Ours was mackerel were getting pushed around. They were getting pushed around by life. A couple of guys next to us started doing it, and they were catching tuna.
Yeah.
They'd be doing it all day. But
and then it was, hey, I caught a nice fish. There's probably more here.
Yeah.
Let's do something different.
Yeah.